Patrick, Patrick,
How are you?
Patrick. I'm excellent, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've known you for a while now, and I didn't actually know what your job title was, and I am very, very jealous. You are a Google transformation specialist. That has to be one of those very cool job titles on a business card. Love it.
Listen, it is a mouthful, especially when I have to do an introduction when I speak to universities, because I specialize in the higher education space. So I literally have to always remember it's the Google Workspace Transformation Specialist. But it's nothing. It's not as fancy as your title. Tell us, Patty, who are you and what do you do?
Oh, I just made my title up. Don't take it seriously. No, but my genuinely, my title is I am head of education strategy for EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa, for the
Hmm.
wonderful Text Help Group. I've been here for 5 years, and I suppose my job at its outset, depending on who you're talking to, my job is
Yeah.
to lead our strategic objectives and make sure that our tools and our software tools and text help have a sort of a real impact. My
Hmm.
personal driver and my personal passion in this is about getting out there and meeting people and actually seeing positive impact. And that's why I picked up on your job title, because that transformation word is really important. And I think transformation for us is around how we transform access and inclusivity to digital content, and how we do that within, say, the Google Workspace environment. And for
Hmm.
those of the listeners that maybe haven't heard of TextHelp, come on, you haven't heard of TextHelp, but TextHelp now enjoy 60 million users globally. So, a huge number of people who are using, say, Google Classroom and Google Tools are now using our tools to help them in specific areas of both teaching and learning. And I would add one last thing, which is I, of course, was out with a gang from Cloud EDU back in what I'll call my summer, back in May. I had a
Yeah.
wonderful time in Cape Town at your conference, and that was really, really, really fabulous. Really enjoyed the country, and even more importantly than that, so enjoyed meeting educators out there. And it's been really exciting to watch the
Yeah.
enthusiasm grow for our products like OrbitNote and Read and Write and Equatio or Maths Tool, and watch
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
grow over the last number of months. So thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. Listen, Patrick, I remember in May when I met you, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, because I do have a teaching background. I used to teach mathematics.
Mhm.
And you were doing a wonderful presentation and something that I never really thought it was possible. So the excitement that I saw from just myself within that session, it was exponential. And then listening to feedback from everyone else who had attended, they were like, we want to get this, we want to get this. And for
Yeah.
the viewers out there who don't know, our current topic for today is we are going to be talking about OrbitNote.
Yeah.
But before you get to OrbitNote, Paddy, your accent, sure. Uh, where are you from?
Yeah, good question. Maybe we should have had this in the comments. Can anybody guess? But I am from a little town called Belfast in Ireland.
Mm.
So Belfast, part of the UK, and that's where I was indeed born and bred. And they say there's two problems with people from Belfast. Number one, that
Mm.
they talk too much, which I think I've probably already shown. And number two, that when they talk, they sing. So we kind of talk up and down as we go. So
I love
hopefully
it.
everybody can follow along with the accent as I go. But yeah, Belfast is home, and actually Belfast, just outside Belfast, is where the company TextHelp was founded, sort of 25 years or so ago, and that's where we still have our headquarters.
Mhm.
We're a global company, but we still have it there. So door, I'm probably 15 minutes away from the TextHelp office. So all good, all good.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much for that. I at least now know that if I'm looking for a destination to just go and do some remote work, I can come to Ireland and I can spend some time there with you because I literally feel that as much as you're speaking about OrbitNote today, there's a lot
Mhm.
that you as a company offer in terms of the range of different services. But I think what I would like to do is just to kick off today's session by asking, when I listened to you present in May, you
Mhm.
based your presentation on PDFs.
Yeah.
And I just want to afford the viewers out there maybe a similar type of scope when you started unpacking the usefulness of a PDF, because at times we tend to limit what a PDF is able to do.
Yeah.
But could you please just give us a brief synopsis of what you think, PDFs can be expanded into by use of different tool sets?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've mentioned it there, which is we've all as educators been using PDFs for online and digital learning for a long time. Many of us, would have downloaded PDF resources and had to print them out in days gone by. And thankfully now with Chromebooks and digital learning tools that we have, they're more and more prevalent on our devices. And of course, the history of the PDF was around it being a flat format that couldn't be changed and was easy to distribute, which in one way is it's kind of very useful if you're saying wanting to distribute a PDF in Google Classroom. You can send it out to your students, but you have to stop for a moment and go, well, what can my students actually do with these PDFs, or what can I do as an educator? How do I make these accessible? So all PDFs are not created the same. So what if a student needs additional help to have it, say, read aloud, or needs some help getting a word identified that, that gives them a dictionary definition or a translation done? Can that happen in PDFs? And the other thing is how do we make them be able to extend those PDFs? So we call it amplify. How do we make them richer? How do they make notes on them? How do they use those to help learning or revision or review? And then the last thing, when we looked at PDFs, we said, well, they're not very actionable. So actually, the vast majority of students, when you get a PDF, it's like, well, how do I complete this? How do I write my answer in that text box? How do I draw that diagram that my teachers asked me to do? And then how on earth do I get it back? So we looked at PDFs and said, look, PDFs are clearly there. They're clearly here to stay. They're not like the perfect way for formative assessment or for development of teaching and learning all the time, but they're a useful part of our classroom environment. And for most of us as educators, we're sitting on an awful lot of them, or we're subscribing to tools online that let us download them, or we're borrowing them from and sharing them with other educators around the globe. So from our perspective, we said, right, well, how can we start to fix these things? And that's really where OrbitNote that you would have saw in Cape Town was born. So we wanted to make things accessible. We wanted to make them amplified so students could do more with them. And we wanted to make them actionable so students could actually do work right on their Chromebook, right in their browser, with all the tools that had they printed it out and had it sitting in front of them and they had a pen with them. We wrapped that all up and said, well, everybody's using Google Classroom. And so we need to make sure that we can assign PDFs easy. And then this whole world of opportunity opens up, because if you're assigning PDFs and your pupils are able to complete them and they're able to send them back with these, well, as a teacher, maybe you want to provide feedback. Maybe you want to assess them, you want to mark them. And so we wrapped all that up in this one product that you actually talked about earlier on. That's OrbitNote.
I love it. Perry, if I could just quickly touch on 3 points that you've just highlighted. You mentioned the first one is accessibility. You mentioned the second one as amplifying the uses of a PDF, and then you spoke about actionable. I'm a teacher. I come from School X, and I want to be able to ensure that my PDFs, because what I do is maybe I share a lot of resources with teachers right across the province or across the country, and most of those, for safety sakes, they are shared as PDFs. How do I take a PDF, and how do I ensure that it is accessible to my students? And is there a particular way that I can do this, or is there what do you mean by accessibility?
So I suppose what we never wanted to do in text helping for the education community was go, right, here's what teachers must do, and here's what they need to do to all those thousands of PDFs that they have through the years, and here's the things they need to check before they send them out. And here, because suddenly what you're doing is taking what is quite a useful thing like a PDF and extend the teacher workload, because you're talking about accessibility and you're saying, right, add these up. So our view is quite simple, is that if you equip a student, as an example, with OrbitNote, what OrbitNote does, if you're a pupil, is you as a teacher, I said to you, you send this PDF out. You don't need to check if it's accessible. You don't need to do anything with it. You send it out as you always would. But the magic happens whenever a pupil or student actually opens that PDF in their browser, because it'll automatically go, whoa, this is not accessible. And what it then does is, I'm going to scan this and I'm going to make it accessible. And it automatically runs a process without you as a teacher having to do one thing. it runs a process, and it makes that PDF accessible.
Mm.
And that means that from a pupil's perspective and a student's perspective, they can sit there and use the rich tools that assistive technology can offer. So suddenly that PDF that was not very accessible, they can have words read out loud. They can add
I
notes
love.
to it. They can look at
Mm.
labels and diagrams. If you're a science teacher or geography teacher, you can see those labels and diagrams not accessible. This process makes it accessible, and it all happens inside about 6 seconds. So it's really transparent for a pupil. And
Yeah.
it all, we were just really conscious that we could not ask a teacher to do more than they were already doing. We could ask teachers
Yes.
to think about accessibility, but to ask them
Yeah.
to go through those resources and do it. So we made it all happen in the magic of OrbitNote, and it happens automatically. Pupil
Perfect.
gets a tiny blue box going, whoa, we're just fixing this for you. It'll be ready in a couple of seconds, and that's it, ready. And then it's ready for good. So I think that
Oh man.
those things, those automated things are really important.
I think I was listening to when you're doing an introduction of what you as text help are able to do. You mentioned some very key word, and I think it's also in my title, which is transformation. And you also spoke about inclusivity. And I think from what you've just basically unpacked is the ability for us to no longer look at PDFs as just this flat file, as this dead document that doesn't really have any life in it. Which brings me back to my second point, which is you speaking about amplifying a PDF. So how does this work? How does this even look? What do you mean by amplifying a PDF?
So if you talk about, and we can maybe show this later on when we're chatting, I said to you, but what we can do here with, say, a PDF, imagine a PDF, and imagine the worst type of PDF. The worst type of PDF in my book are those 400-page textbooks. So in the UK, we have GCSE qualifications, from age 14 to 16. And those all come with heavy digital textbooks, and they're designed to obviously support learning. But if you and I think back to whenever we had textbooks, we had a textbook, and actually, even though we were told not to do it, we could run a highlighter on that, right? We could add page tabs to it. We could add some comments through a stick-on post-it note. We could jot diagrams in the margin, right? And we all did that, and we all did that certainly when we got to third level, because they were our books. And like me, you might have got in trouble in earlier levels for writing in your book, but the point was we still had the ability to do it. When you fast forward and you say, right, well, our students are learning digitally now, and they've got this 40-page, for example, in this case, a digital textbook, we need to give them the capability to run those highlighters just like they would on pen and paper and highlight key passages. What are important to learning? The highlight keywords, maybe build a word bank so as they can memorize and research particular words that were important to that topic. We want to give them the ability in this digital age to add, for example, a voice note. I said earlier, I tend to talk a lot, and that's very much an Irish thing. But what I find really useful, no matter how much I cringe and don't like the sound of my own voice, is adding a voice note to a PDF and going, well, my understanding of this thing I've just read is this, and explaining it back in my voice, because that's the way I've understood it. So suddenly that PDF, which was flat, which we couldn't do anything with, becomes a living, breathing document. And if you fast forward that, I said to you, and you go, that PDF, right, which was flat that I got at the start of the year, as I've went through, I've used it on my Chromebook, I've added voice notes, I've added post-its, I've added highlights, I've created summary notes. And you come back to that when it's time for assessment and review, you've got all your notes made, and it's all in that PDF. And I think that to amplify that is just so important. And these are tools that have never before been available to us to do in any kind of concerted way for teaching and learning. We've all had access to Adobe Acrobat, and we've been able to put signatures on documents and fill a form in. But that's not there and ready for learning. And that's just what we're trying to do with and what we're hopefully succeeding with in OrbitNote.
I love it. Listen, I'm a visual learner. I like to see things. I heard so many fantastic things. Are you able to just show us maybe some of the actionable parts? What can I actually do to actually amplify a PDF? Is there something that you can demo for us today, please, Patty?
Absolutely. we maybe go through, if we can just share our screen there, and I'll pop my screen on stage. So this is essentially, this is one of these horrendous textbooks that we get in the UK, and there's nothing horrendous about the subject. This is quite a deep subject. So it's history, changes in medicine, 1848 to 1948. Whoa, there's a lot of content in it. And this is for 14 to 16-year-olds. Okay, so this is a fairly heavy textbook, but it's very typical of the textbook that we might get. Now, there's a couple of things we talked about earlier in this, which is, how accessible is this? Well, because I've already opened it before I shared my screen, OrbitNote has already went through this and went, I'm just going to fix this for you and make it accessible. So we're all good there. We know if it's open, we're good to go. But what you see on the screen, lots of the things we talked about, you'll see your PDF. Most of you have ever opened a PDF will know that bottom page there. You know, we can download things, we can print things. But what many of you may well never have seen is this, because this is the OrbitNote toolbar. And this is what gives us the tools that can support all those three areas that we've just talked about. So the ability to have it accessible and actionable, and the ability to have this amplified. And this is simple things like text to speech. So if I think about accessibility for a while, and I go down and I'm all the way down, and I go down here and I'm starting reading this book, I can simply click on text to speech. And in a PDF that wasn't accessible before, I can click on this and I can have that read aloud. So I can have that read aloud so it can help my understanding. And if you think about a PDF, right, and you think about a learner, that's really useful for somebody who maybe has dyslexia, right? And it's going to pace through and it's going to help there. But imagine significant periods of online learning, or imagine me trying to get this into my head. What I might want to do is switch off to the screen and just press play and just have all of that read aloud. I might want to listen to it. You talked about how you like to see things. You know, many people like to listen to things as well, and I'm like that. But I do a couple of things here. I could just press play and just listen to that. Or better still, my PDF, I can take it and I can turn it into an MP3 audio file in one click just by pressing a button. So if I do that, that means that I can fire it on my mobile phone and I can listen to it on the bus, on the train, in the car journey, on the walk to school, however I'm traveling there, I can actually listen to my notes. So there's accessibility there, but there's also a way to kind of help with things. And there's other tools on this accessibility bit. Remember, OrbitNote went, I'll make this accessible for you, don't worry about it. But if I had a word on this page, okay, and I don't really know what that is, but I know what this word is, but I'm just going to highlight it, right? I'm going to highlight the word coughed, okay? So I'm going to highlight the word coughed. I'm not quite sure what that is. I can have it played aloud. But accessibility means that I can press this button here and get a definition of that word. Imagine I've just been given this PDF textbook and I'm like, I'm looking at my Chromebook. I have no idea what this word is. What does it mean? How do I pronounce it? I can get this. I can have the word read aloud. Okay, so it'll read aloud. But I can also get an example. I'm like, I'm not 100% sure what a cough actually is or what coughed is, but I get a visual reference of that as well. And this is useful for standard words that are just there. But also, more importantly, if you get a PDF textbook and it's suddenly made accessible, and this is a topic that you're unfamiliar with, it's maybe just being introduced to you and you're maybe having to be a little bit more independent with your study, you can get help as you go on this. And I think, so accessibility for me is not just if you need something that's accessible, it's about giving you additional tools to get that content more in the way that you actually need it. So, and we can do translation, and you listen to the voice there and it's probably a very British sounding voice, but you know, we have, you know, South African regional English voices, and you can pick the speed in which that's read at, the tone, the male, the female, the regional accent. So you can get at something that's comfortable to help your understanding. And I kid you not, this is not a lie. My preferred voice is the South African voice on this, because I find it very genuinely, and we've always said that in tech, because it's so relaxing. I could sit and listen to this. Like, yeah, I like the tone and the flow. So look, that gives us the ability there to get some accessibility pieces and things like, see this, right? So this isn't very accessible, but if I want it read aloud, I've got tools there in these diagrams that can have these read aloud. So I can just draw over it and I can have that read aloud, and it's going to OCR it. But you know what's really handy? What's really handy is a copy button. So anything that wasn't accessible, I can actually copy it right to the clipboard and add it in as a note if I want as well. So if I wanted to go through blocks of text and just use these as notes, I could do that. So look, that's a very quick bit on accessibility. But I'm going to actually use the same document and show you a couple of really cool things that can kind of extend this. We talked earlier
Please.
about the books that we used to have when we studied. We're old enough, Asetu, to remember books, right? We are.
We know what a book is, and we know what a library is.
Yeah, no, sorry, no, I'm not that old. No, can't remember libraries. But you imagine highlighters, okay? So I have digital highlighters for my PDF now. So if I'm reading this PDF and I go, right, okay, I need to highlight some of these things, I can open my highlighter toolbox. So I can go through this and I can say, yeah, medical understanding. Yeah, that's really important. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to say, yeah, blood was an important part of the body, right? I need to highlight that. That's clearly an important part of this. Flushed, okay, that's an important part, but that's slightly different. That's moving on. So I'll use my green highlighter for that. Every time I come back to this PDF, just like a real book, those highlights stay in the PDF. So I always know that those are there. But I'll show you a bit of magic at this stage, which is I can now actually collate all of those notes, okay? So I can collate all of those notes just by pressing this button up the top. So watch what happens here. If I press, and remember, I've highlighted just 3 things. And if you're a diligent student, I would hope you're highlighting more than 3 things on a PDF. If my daughter was only highlighting 3 things, she'd be in trouble with me, it has to be said. But imagine I went through maybe 4 or 5 pages of a topic and I pulled out all the key sentences that I felt are important. If I press this button here, this collect highlights button, and you mightn't see this on the screen here, but what this actually does is this will actually take each of those pieces. It'll create a brand new Google document and it will add just highlights into the Google document and link me back to the original PDF. So instantly what I've done, there's loads of ways we can use this. We can say, I've read a very long PDF and I need to produce an essay from it. So I'm going to produce a summary of the key points. Or I've read a PDF on a new science topic. I need to pull out the key things that I've got to remember whenever it's tested. So I've got lots of ways I can use those highlighters on there. So I'm going to clear that one off the screen. I'll leave the highlighters on just to show you that they're there. But if, for example, I wanted to add an image into this PDF because I'm like, I need something that helps prompt me and remind me. I can simply, and I'll not do it just for time here, but I can go straight to this add image button and grab something off my desktop and pop it right into the PDF. This brings a PDF more in line with a Word document or a Google document. So legacy resources are now properly editable and usable. But I could also do things like, for example, I could very, very simply just start to highlight things as well here. So I can start to draw and highlight, and I'm not going to draw these straight just for speed of time, but I can just do very simple things and highlight notes as I go, as if I had a pen. So I can highlight these. Other things that I can do. So if I scroll down, okay, and I go here, right? So I need to explain this out because I don't really understand this. We're all familiar. You're a Google transformation specialist. I'm sure you know Google Docs inside out. One of the things most useful is comments in Google Docs. So we have now added comments on the PDFs. So we can go in comments on a PDF and we can add a comment, right? And I'll just scroll over the screen here. But this is a special type of comment because this allows me to record a voice note comment. So I can just press this button here. Yep. I can press this button here and I can start recording. And here is my very quick voice note because I need to know that disease is caused by microorganisms and a microorganism is. And now what I've got is a voice note that's aligned with that microorganism place. And I can listen that anywhere. So if I need to play that back, I've got it. The other thing I can do on that is, and here's a really good tip on this. If I go here, right, we're all used to in, say, Google Docs, typing in our comment bank. But you know what? If you're a student and you're going through these and you actually want to type faster, what's the best way to type faster, Aseti? What's the best way to type faster?
I know that in Google Docs, we use voice typing.
Exactly. So you nailed it in one. You're clearly a Google transformation specialist. I know this now. You've passed the test.
Yes.
So what I've got, there's a special badge coming your direction from Text.
Thank you.
What I've got here in these comments, I can record my voice. but I can also speak into that, and I can just keep speaking, and I have no limits on that. So I could record my own notes. So if I don't like listening to my own voice, I could just use talk to type. I can also play those comments back. I can add in images. I can add in links to other Google files. So if I've got maybe my teacher has sent me a Google Slides presentation, and I need to link it to this, so as I refer back to that again, I can just press the link there, and I can automatically go into that. And I can images I talked about as well. And we take this a wee bit further, right? So I'm just going to cancel that out, right? I'm going to show you my favorite thing on this. And here's what happens. I'll give you an inside view, and I really hope he's not listening in text help. My boss, right, will come to me and say, buddy, here's a 400-page document. Could you just summarize that by 12 o'clock for me? And if you think about that, going through that with those lines, with those highlighter tools, I can summarize it really fast. But one of the things that my boss likes is to get the PDF back in an unobscured way. So he actually doesn't like all the highlights necessarily, or have to click into the comments. So what we have here, and think how cool this is for a student, we have a thing called push pin, right? So let's go to this topic here, miasma, right? So I'm going to go to push pin, and I'm going to click a push pin, right? And a push pin will let me start to type notes, and I can type notes through voice typing as well, remember. So I can do it in all of those ways, right? And that looks really simple, okay? But what you'll see here is just about, you'll see that there's, instead of a big comment box or loads of highlighting, there's just that tiny little pin. And so when I come back to this and I click the pin, I'm going to get my notes up, and the notes appear from behind the pin. So you imagine a complex PDF, it doesn't obscure all my writing. It doesn't get lots of stuff in the margins. It gives me a way that I can say, well, oh, actually, I want to have a comment about the weather, and I'm going to say it's hot. And if I'm in Belfast, it's rainy. Okay. So I'm going to add those in. But this means that every time I go through my doc, oh, I made a note there, I can just click it and I can view it. You know where that's really handy for as well? It's actually where that's really handy for is teachers providing feedback. Imagine using all those tools, the tick boxes and the highlighting for marking, or the voice notes for marking. It's also really useful to provide some summary feedbacks on specific points of a passage, say in an essay, just by adding a push pin in, speaking directly into your microphone, and suddenly you've left a whole lot of notes for your pupil as feedback. So there's lots of ways we can action this out. So if we've got time, actually show you one wee quick tip before we go to this last one. I've got things like screen masking here. And screen masking is really useful if, for example, you have Mears-Erlund syndrome, or you're dyslexic or ADHD. And that's what it's designed to do, to provide a screen overlay. But you know why I like this? Because I don't struggle with any of those particular areas. But what I do struggle with is focus and attention. So I'm going to expand this screen mask out, and I'm going to change it so as it blocks off passages on the page. So on my PDF. So now I can focus on a particular area. And imagine this is a PDF with a question and an answer, right? So I highlight over the question, read the question, right? Can I come up with the answer? And when I'm ready for the answer, I can slide down and get the answer. But I can't cheat because I've blocked off those areas. So we think about how we have taken in that short time, I said to you, how we've taken the boring flat PDFs that we talked about at the start, and we went, now you can create summary notes, highlighters, voice comments, feedback, vocabulary tables, reference points, have it read aloud, have it listened to as an audio file. Like suddenly your PDF becomes alive.
Absolutely.
Now, but there's one thing around this, right? And the thing around this is assuming that all you've done is, for an older pupil, you've said, here is your PDF, your topic. I'm going to teach you your topic, and you're going to refer to this PDF, perhaps for some exercises. And if you go down this PDF, for an example, there are exercises here, right? And there are exercises here, for example, explain why limited knowledge and understanding of the cause of disease prevented progress in medical treatment. Okay, so where am I going to fill that in? Think about what we did earlier. I could add a voice note on there, and I could answer that question. Or I could add a push pin and type or speak type my question. If I had an area over here, for example, draw a diagram, I can pick up my pen tool right here, and I can just start drawing a diagram on the left-hand side. So this becomes actionable. But then people go, well, what about younger kids? Right? and I'll go here, okay? And I hope we're all right for time. I said to you, I warned you I talk a
Love it.
lot,
No,
but
we're still good. We're still good. We're still good.
we're good. So
Here we're good.
here's
We're good.
a simple primary level PDF. Now this is a PDF from a provider. I don't know if you guys know this provider, but provider works within the UK curriculum in my home country, okay? And you effectively can download these, you can buy additional resources here, but it's just like any online resource. But this is a PDF. And if you're in a school and you've got digital devices or you want to assign this for homework, what typically used to happen with this was horrendous. People would
Yeah.
download this and then they'd be asked to go and find a printer. And we think we all
Mm,
found out during COVID that actually very little of us actually had a printer at home and that ink was very expensive and
yeah.
paper was a challenge to get back when you were learning at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what we do here is we go, do you know all those tools? We'll assign this in Google Classroom because it's built into Google Classroom. Say,
Yeah.
here's a page we want you to fill in pages 1 and 2. But then think about those tools, right? I've now got my line tool, match the net to the correct label. Well, clearly that is a square base pyramid. So now I complete this. What's this? Oh, I'm not sure what this is. I think it's a cube. Okay, I can map it to that. What's this one here? Well, maybe it's a cuboid. I don't know. Oh, is
Mm,
this a cylinder? Yeah. So instantly I've got my pen and paper tools here. And then if
yeah.
you think over here, who do you agree with? Circular answer. I'm going to agree with Rosie. I have no idea if
Yeah.
Rosie's right or not, but I'm going to
Yeah.
agree with her now. Okay.
Sure.
But then the one thing you didn't see earlier was the ability to type. And what I want you to remember is, as educators or in the world of work, we're used to people sending us fancy PDFs that when you click a text area, you can just start typing in an answer. They're called fillable PDFs.
Yeah.
The vast majority of educational resources are not fillable PDFs. They just look like this. So how on earth am I going to get a pupil to write an answer in here? Well, what I could do is, of course, they could use the pen, they could handwrite, but all I need to do is click, right? And now I can say cube, okay? And when I have it there, now I have this, and of course I can move that around just to line it up to get it straight. Sorry, I duplicated that one out there, wrong click. But now I can actually write and type directly on top of any
Yeah.
PDF. Early on, you said to me, well, as a teacher, how do I make this accessible and how do I do this? And I went, well, we don't want you to have to do anything. The same applies to this. This is a standard downloadable purchased PDF. All I've asked the teacher to do is send it out. And all I've done is given my pupils the chance to start typing on top of it. I haven't edited, I haven't changed it, I haven't done anything with it. So it makes it easy to start to complete. So you can imagine drawing diagrams or creating activities or mapping or circling or labeling or working out maths problems or shading areas. You've got all the tools there to do that, and you get shapes and all built into. So they are. I'm going to show you one last thing here, right? Not to blow everybody's mind, but new thing on OrbitNote is this. So I don't know if I mentioned you, I said to you when I was over with you in Cape Town, but my lovely and wonderful wife is a teacher. And I talked to her about PDFs many years ago, and I said, right, what's your challenges with PDFs, right?
Yes.
What's your thing? And her thing to me was, actually, I get a lot of resources, but there's lots of it are not relevant to my class. And what would be
Yes.
really useful is if I can strip down a resource. So I have taken one of my lovely wife's resources and I'm deciding that I don't like it. Let's not tell her that and let's not hope she does. Okay?
Yes.
And the reason I don't like it is because I'm a teacher in a different school or maybe in a different country. But maybe, and she's teaching space here as a physics teacher, but maybe I like some of the resources that she's openly sharing. So what I could do very easily here, and this is just in the OrbitNote menu, I can open up her entire PDF and you'll see there she's been very productive. She's written an entire booklet for across the year on space, lots of activities built in there. I could have sent that out in Google Classroom and just get it right. Pupils use OrbitNote to fill in the table and label a diagram and complete the sentence and all the activities. But I'm saying, no, actually, I need it for myself. So you'll see it has all the pages there. So I can start to create a new PDF because I can say, I only want that page. I only want that page. Oh, I really like that page. That page is not useful to me. And now I've built a brand new PDF just with the bits that I need from that resource. Imagine how fast that is. Imagine you guys are getting some UK curriculum stuff downloaded and you're like, well, that doesn't apply to the South African curriculum. But that question does and that question does. You can just go, I'm going to delete those pages. And I have immediately created a brand spanking new PDF. So really, really useful to have that. But also what I can simply do is I could just delete a page. Okay. And if I'm not sure what's on that page, of course I can press the pop-out box and look at it. There's other things I can do that we won't have time to show you. Like I can put, for example, I have a maths paper and I'm wanting the students to draw a graph. Well, I could insert a graph, a blank graph sheet, or I can insert an answer sheet. Or if you're looking at, say, a practice paper and you go, well, I want my class to answer that question, but not that one, but then that one, I can blank out a section of a page there too. So, all of this, all available in Google Classroom. It's just a Chrome extension, and your skills that you will transform, I have no doubt, into wonderful Google skills can get access to the extension, and they can utilize this for their pupils and for their staff in Google Classroom as a complete workflow, outside of Google Classroom as a standalone tool for all of those ways that we've talked about. So I think I've talked enough now, Setya, and I'm going to hand that back over to you. Any other questions?
Listen, Patrick, my brain is just blown away because I was just thinking about the inclusivity, and I listened to the part where you mentioned, converting an entire PDF into an MP3, because at times, we want the idea of an audiobook. And most audiobooks are very, very expensive. So if you already have a PDF that you'd want to literally have read back to you, whether you are driving to school or maybe you want it to be summarized or rather read out to you in a particular way, this definitely can assist with that. I'm thinking about, some blind or partially blind students now can actually benefit from some of the written material. Even when it comes to the deaf students, they can also be enriched by more customization. You can now make a PDF more visibly appealing to them by adding more images, by doing a lot more to that PDF. I wish we had the whole day. I'm hearing you speak about graphs. I'm excited because I taught maths. I think, this is the one webinar that follows many that we are going to have, because there is so much more value that maybe our teachers can add to their teaching practice. And one thing is that it is fully integrated into Google Classroom. So if a school is already a Google school and they're using Classroom, this could be just the next iteration of what can they do to make.
Do you know what I didn't show? I said, we won't have time, I know, but you'll see, I just went back to the screen. You'll see just up the top screen, there's a tiny little Google Classroom icon right there. And that enables me to do two things. Do you know that time where somebody asks you a question in class, and you're like, I'm going to find you a resource that can help you with that? You literally Google it, you check the PDF, and you go, I want to send it out. You can Google and find a PDF and open it up in OrbitNote and simply press the share to classroom button, and it'll automatically say, which class do you want to send out as material? Go. So straight from a Google link, you can do that. But also, if you assign, that this little maths workbook that we had, let's say you assign that to your pupils and you say, please complete questions 1 to 3, okay, in Google Classroom. What happens is their button looks slightly different than yours. This is teacher view, and that is the submit button. And that means that all you need to instruct people to do is, when you have finished questions 1 to 3, press the little paper airplane on the top right, and it goes right the way back to the original assignment. Teacher gets notified, just like we've all become used to in Google Classroom. And it means that nobody has to create a special type of Google assignment or a special way to submit it or a different platform. Our children now, and you've been through Google transformation, they're used to Google Classroom. They understand it. They know how to read it. They know how to access it. They know how to submit stuff. And this is really useful because we're not having to, tacky terms with us, and I know you'll use it too, is onboarding our pupils, teaching them how to use the tools. There's very little of that in the Google Classroom part here, because they all know what the button does and they all know how to get it back. And those things are really important.
Oh man, listen, I'm blown away. But I just want to thank you so much for this wonderful session, Patrick. Thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge. If there's any questions, please feel free to drop it on the chat on the side. We'll answer as many questions as we can. And look forward to seeing you next episode. And the next episode will be Ed Puzzle. So that will be another element that we are going to be touching on. And this will be on the 5th of October. So 5th of October, we are on Ed Puzzle. We've got another surprise guest. So we like doing things international here in Cloud EDU. But Patrick, thank you so much. I've learned quite a lot. I thought I knew something in May. I think I know a little bit more today. Because listen, I'm super excited. With all that being said, thank you so much and have yourself a wonderful day further.
Thank you, everybody. Good to be here. Thank you, Setu. Brilliant.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.